Hi, and welcome to Storytime with Jester. Today, we will be reading from my personal novel, The Book of Prophecies. We'll be reading from chapter 64, Throne of the Gods. "I'm sick of this place," Fiz exclaimed. "I want to go home." The journey was starting to take its toll on the little gnome. The trip to the mountain was bad enough. He hated the cold. That's why he had left his clan in the Fagaras Mountains years ago and journeyed south to warmer climes. The worst, however, had been since entering the depths of this mountain itself. Unlike Mao, he was not suited to be enclosed so. He needed wide open spaces. The place reeked of wet dog, to the point he thought that if he ever got out of this place, it would take him a month of scrubbing to get the smell out of his clothes. And his hat, his big, beautiful, floppy wizard's hat, it was riddled with holes. Since entering the mountain, they had been ruthlessly harried by these little creatures that he could only describe as anemic midget lizard men. They were cowardly little maggots, never once entering melee with his group, always laying traps and firing arrows from a distance. So many arrows. And they seemed to have a propensity in targeting him over all the others in the group. Why? Was it his hat? Did they have some sick aggression to big hats? Maybe a grand wizard came to this mountain wearing a big floppy hat and wreaked havoc on them. So from that time on, they hate floppy hats. That must be it. Their second favorite target has been the other mages in the group. Miranda, Sigrun, and Adara were all favorites of the little freak's arrows. Oh, Adara, she fell to a black arrow. Well, the fletching was black. The arrow itself was poisoned. Thankfully for him, he had protected himself with a spell, rendering his skin as strong as stone. Those dreadful death bolts merely bounced off of him, causing no harm. Not so with his clothing, however. Oh, his big, beautiful floppy hat. "Ulrich," Fiz called out to, "tell me again why exactly we are here." "Well," Ulrich replied, "there are several. We mean to find the throne of the gods, and ask for the return of Pedius and Veyril. But above all, we are searching for a dagger." Fiz halted in his tracks. "A dagger?" he replied, rather put off at the price that had been paid thus far for something as insignificant sounding as a mere dagger. "Yes," Ulrich continued. "While we were in Osnaburg, I did quite a bit of research in the libraries there, and much communing with my god. I learned a lot. Remember Flamehead?" Ulrich continued without waiting for a response. "Well, it seems that he is in search for a trio of linked magical items, the rod that our dwarven friend here had stolen being the second of such. The three items individually have great evil powers, but when possessed together are amplified. At first I thought he was just acquiring power for himself. That was until I came across an old tome mentioning an ancient power that lay somewhere in slumber waiting to be awakened. The description of it and its temples bore an overwhelmingly resemblance to the place you and Mal described near your old clan in the Fagaras Mountains. It seems the items that Flamehead seeks are what are needed to awaken this evil power." "So the third item is a dagger?" Fiz surmised. "No," Ulrich responded, "an orb." Confused, Fiz asked, "Then why are we trying to find the orb before Flickerhair?" "I was instructed by an emissary of my god to seek out a dagger in a mountain that is far removed from mankind." "So you brought us here based on that?" Fiz stated, incensed. "All portents pointed here," Ulrich replied. "I did not choose this place willy-nilly." "What of this dagger?" the up till now silent Mal asked. "How will we know if we find it?" "It is unique in that it is crafted from the horn of a unicorn," Ulrich replied. It is also said that only one of the good nature can ever touch it safely. And what exactly is its purpose? Asked the incredulous Fizz. To slay a god, Ulrich said. Krunk here doesn't have quite those high aspirations, Miranda said. He only wants to slay a dragon. I do not believe there to be a dragon in this mountain, Fizz stated flatly. Only these accursed little creatures. I disagree, Tinker, said Yaroslav, a muscular warrior with dark hair and eyes. Fizz looked at Mal and said, as Yaroslav continued, Did he just call me a tinker? Our comrades, Yaroslav said, gesturing towards Sigrun as he did so, did not die in this mountain to fight a mere Drakonchaloviki. No, there is a dragon here, with untold treasure awaiting those that slay it. Addressing Miranda, Sigrun said, So, tell us, why are you here? Johann, we know, was hired by you all as a guide. Would it perhaps be to slay a dragon like your friend Krunk? She said this with a hint of malice in her voice. She had become jealous of Miranda in the short time she knew her, mainly because she saw how Yaroslav looked at her. She longed for him to look at her that way. Was she not pretty enough? Or did he see in Miranda more skill in the arts of magic than she? Regardless, she did not like Miranda one bit, and let it show with the air of interrogation in her question. My reasons are my own, Miranda responded coldly. Should we meet up with this dragon you are so convinced resides here, I shall hold my own, she added, completely oblivious to the intonations in Sigrun's voice and the meaning of the question, thinking rather that Sigrun questioned her ability in a battle with such beast. Seemingly overlooked in the conversation was their scrawny, frail, elderly companion, Uran the Nimble. Felt left out, he spoke of his own accord. It is the treasure I seek, yes, the treasure. Why, once when I was younger, I stole into the lair of a dragon and took half his treasure whilst he was sleeping. Yes, I did. Well, I'm here to tell you, he was not too happy when he woke up. No, he wasn't. He continued his story, although no one paid any mind to anything he was saying. They had all grown tired of his fanciful stories. Even Mal, who loved telling stories, could no longer stomach the rubbish that spat forth from Uran's forked tongue since they freed him from captivity over a week ago. They weren't quite sure of his profession, or even if he had any based on the past week. They allowed him to stay with them, if for no other reason than to appease their consciences. The group left the series of tunnels and runes hewn out of the rock and entered a natural tunnel that gradually elevated. As they advanced only to a distance of about 50 feet, steps that seemed to have been hewn into the natural floor rose another 50 feet, widening at the crest and opening onto a ledge some 20 feet wide that circled around to the left and overlooked a vast cavern nearly 70 feet below. The view was breathtaking as the entirety of the cavern was illuminated by a reddish glow from some undetermined source. Covering the whole cavern floor, which must have been at least 200 feet in diameter had it been circular, was treasure. An enormous carpet of coins of all sorts glittered and gleamed a reflective red, giving the impression that they were scales of a dragon. Piled everywhere were mounds of these coins at various heights, with other types of treasure scattered and heaped among them. Full suits of individual pieces of armor and weapons of all sorts lay everywhere, the remnants of past intruders. Work of art and vessels of silver, gold, and platinum jutted up out of the sea of coins. Gems that sparkled with the brilliance of suns were sprinkled throughout, like thousands of torches alight across the surface of Mars. Miranda pulled out a glass prism and began peering through it, first at the cavern floor, then to the wall on her left. Ulrich retrieved a piece of lodestone from a pouch and began casting a spell, while the others fanned out on the ledge, readying weapons and preparing spells. Mal and Uran proceeded ahead of the rest, along the ledge which finally led down to the cavern floor at the far left. Miranda paused a quarter of the way along the ledge, appearing to have noticed something through her gem. Ulrich after concentrating on the image of the dagger he had seen while scrying it back in Osnaburg, stopped and pointed in a direction on the cavern floor. "Mal," he said, "look for that dagger along that line." He motioned with his hand. Mal and Muran were first to reach the cavern floor, the others not too anxious to descend from off their perch despite the wealth of treasure that lay before them. Mal found walking over all the coins difficult, as they shifted with each step, causing him to tax his dexterity greatly. Finally, off in the distance, some 50 feet away on the line Ulrich pointed, Mal saw what looked like a horn jutting up out of the coinage. As Mal made towards it, Muran began another of his tales. "Oh, I am getting confused in my old age," he began. "I am always getting things mixed up." Miranda paused in a niche and reached out with a hand to feel the wall. Continuing to peer through the gem, she found the catch and opened the secret door. Taking a glance back, she stepped through the door into what lay beyond. Mal reached the object he thought to be the horn. "Would someone shut up this raving lunatic?" he thought to himself as the words of Muran's ranting reverberated in his skull. "Yes," Muran was saying, "it wasn't a sleeping dragon I stole the huge treasure from." As Mal reached down to pluck what was indeed a unicorn horn out of the mass of coins, something long and scaly slithered under him between his legs. Up on the ledge, Fizz let out a gasp and uttered 3 words in disbelief and horror. "Oh my God!" It was the dwarves of this mountain who now rest in eternal sleep, whose treasure I now have. With the utterance of those last words, Muran's transformation was complete. Mal snatched the horn from the coins as he was lifted up by what was the tail of a gargantuan red dragon. The tail whipped around, Mal holding on for dear life, and swept across the ledge, slamming into all those present. Ulrich was propelled through the secret entrance, Fizz up against the cavern wall. The others were knocked prone and stunned, except for Krunk, who was able to dodge the tail sweep at the last second by diving over the ledge. He tumbled down the 70-foot slope to the cavern floor, where he landed in the sea of coins. Fizz, still protected by his spell, was not stunned by the attack, nor received any damage. Unfortunately for him, however, unlike those laying on the ledge, he stared straight into what was to be their fiery death as the ancient dragon unleashed its dragon breath upon all on the ledge. When the roaring flames subsided, what looked like many campfires lay across the ledge. Mal jumped off the dragon's tail, which lay motionless near the cavern entrance during the inferno. He raced over to the blackened Fizz and grabbed his smoldering body, dragging it into the secret entrance while the dragon turned its attention to the one whose sole purpose was to slay it. Krunk rose to his feet and girded his loins, standing defiantly alone against the beast he came to destroy. And that, my dear friends, is where I will leave you. I don't want to give too much away, because then it would spoil things earlier in the book, and possibly what would be to come. So, if you'd like to know more about what is going on with Miranda and Krunk and Ulrich and Fizz and Mal, and did Muran the Nimble just turn into a gargantuan red dragon? Well, you'll just have to get my book, The Book of Prophecies, because there are plenty of stories like this inside. It is not a collection of stories, it is a full saga, but nevertheless there are many plots and subplots and stories and sub-stories and what have you. So, like I said, you can get this by going to lulu.com, or you can follow the direct links to the hardback, which I personally is my favorite, or the paperback, and I also have it on ebook and on Amazon Kindle. So, again, I hope you enjoyed today's story. I'll be reading again at soon out of the